So please welcome to the stage, Trent Innes.
Thanks, John. What an absolutely amazing venue. So as my slides come up, here we go. All right. So before I start, I just want to say a massive big thank you to Business Depot and congratulations for actually winning Xero Accounting Partner of the Year. So John actually stole my thunder and pre-announced himself, but I do actually want to give him a big congratulations for that. To give you a rough idea, we have over 100,000 accounting and bookkeeping advisors around the world. So for someone to win this award in Australia is a massive big deal. So congratulations. All right, so you're probably wondering, why am I talking at a startup event if I actually say I'm not an entrepreneur? John actually, in his introduction, said I spent a lot of time in sales. I actually done a lot of different things. I did actually start my career as an accountant. I just quite often say that I wasn't very good at it and I actually didn't enjoy it very much. So I quickly got out of that and I got into the technology field. But it was actually much more around consulting and actually the really technical aspect of it. So I'm actually a SQL Server DBA deep down, but I actually don't tell anybody. People think I'm actually a salesperson, but that's actually not the truth. My background was much more consulting, much more about helping businesses through technology. And what I saw really early on was that when you took accounting and combined it with technology, you could actually help small business and especially and business overall be far more productive. And that was really what drove my passion and really what I've been involved in the whole way through my career. I did, however, have a startup at one point in time. So I did in my late 20s go out on my own, start this business, and actually was a software product. And I did develop it for a period of time, and it failed. So things do fail over time, and it doesn't mean it's the end of the earth. And then I found my way back into Microsoft after that and had an amazing journey there for 8 years. And 4.5 years ago, I joined Xero. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is the journey that I've had at Xero. So I am not a startup guy. I am what I would call a scale-up guy. So I am the person that comes in when you're at a certain stage and helps you take your business to that next level of exponential growth. So what does that look like in terms of Xero? So when I joined Xero in 2013, we had, give or take, about 40 employees in Australia. And we've now got, this is a little bit old actually, I think we've now got about 360 odd employees in Australia. So we've seen amazing growth from a people perspective within the business. We've also seen amazing growth from a subscriber perspective. Do we have any Xero customers in the room? Wow. So what was interesting, 4 years ago, if I had have asked that question, it would have been tumbleweeds just going through the room. There was basically nobody had really heard of us at that point in time. Because back then, we effectively had about 40,000 subscribers on the platform, and we're now well over 500,000 subscribers in Australia. So what I'm going to share with you today is what are the things that I think about, and what are the things that I've actually implemented to help build that growth. And one of the things we're even more proud of now is we've actually got over 1 million subscribers globally. So I think one of the things that we are really proud of at Xero is you've actually proven you can build a global tech company from this part of the world. I think there's a belief that you have to go to Silicon Valley or you have to be overseas to do that. There's no reason for that. We've got amazing talent here. We've got amazing opportunity, and we've actually proven you can do that. So Xero's now got customers in 180 countries around the world. So the great thing about the cloud, it's actually completely changed the economic models, and it's allowed us to actually expand globally. And customers find us from these most bizarre countries I'd never even heard of before, that are actually using Xero from around the world. So the growth has been actually absolutely phenomenal. But what I'm going to take you through now is the 5 big things that I thought about when I first came in. So there's a couple of people around here that have worked with me for a period of time, and what they'll always tell you is I never have more than 5 things on the go at any point in time. So I try to make things as simple as I possibly can, and I think it's a sign, not saying I am a great leader, but I think it's a sign of a really good leader or a great leader who takes the inherently complex and makes it simple. Because you want everyone around you to be able to follow you and work out what it is that you're doing. So my advice is never more than 5, and if you can do 4, that's even better. So the first one is be purposeful. People want to work for purpose. People will work for salary for a very short period of time, but if you can get them to work for a purpose, they're actually going to be far more aligned to overall goals and actually want to hang around and stick with you for a longer period of time. So we have great, from a people perspective, our turnover rates are very, very low compared to the overall tech industry. And I think part of that's because we provide an amazing environment, but we're also very purposeful. So the purpose behind Xero is to enable a small business economy to thrive through beautiful software, advice, and connections. So we build software. That's what we do. We're a tech company. But the advice comes through our partner network, guys like Business Depot. There's over 100,000 advisors around the world working on the platform, and through connections as well. I'm going to touch on this a little bit later on, but connections are connections to the likes of banks, connections to external software developers. There's over 40,000 developers externally developing around the outside of Xero now. So there's this whole network of activity happening around the outside. But one of the things that's really, really important is to never forget about why you actually do what you do. So when you talk about small businesses and subscribers, and we talk about 500,000 subscribers, and some days we add, 1,000 new small businesses a day onto the platform. If you go and stand out in the street and you put 1,000 small businesses down the street, that's a really, really long street. But the thing to never forget is that, and what we always try to remember inside the business, is that behind every one of those small businesses, there's a person. So there's a person behind there, either feeding their family or trying to live a dream or to do something good. They've gone into that for a reason. So you always want to remember why it is that you actually went into the business in the first place. And if you can get your teams moving behind that, you can scale from 40 people to 350 people quite easily because they'll actually work for purpose. And at the end of the day, we're actually helping to create jobs and growth in the Australian economy. We actually believe that. We talk about that a lot. If we get every one of those small businesses on the platform to employ one more person, that's 500,000 jobs. 500,000 jobs we could actually bring into the Australian economy, and we could actually fix some really big macroeconomic things that are happening in the economy. So that's number one, be purposeful. Number two, and probably my favourite, is hire for attitude. It's very, very easy at a point in time to go and hire someone for their skills. So you go and say, this person's got the best skills, but they are an absolute dick, but don't worry, I'll get the dick bit out of them, but they're going to turn out really, really good at the end of the day. They're going to work out really well. Does that ever happen? That never happens. I still try to interview every new starter. So even though we tend to take on 8 to 10 people a week, give or take, in the Australian business, and it's not because I'm a control freak, it's actually because I actually just want to spend 15 minutes to 30 minutes trying to get to know them. Because if we can keep our hierarchy really flat from a how, what we do is different. The role I do every day is very, very different than a program, or very different than someone in CX or someone in sales. But the way we go about it, the how, should be exactly the same. And if we can keep that how going the same way, we keep it really, really flat. I was trying not to swear up here because I'm sure I'll get in trouble for my PR people, but I'm going to swear anyhow. One of the things I always say in our interviews is, if you ever see me push in front of someone to get a coffee, I would love anyone in the business to tell me to fuck off. And they should. And we actually want that structure inside the business. We want to keep it really, really flat. So my view is that purpose plus values will equal success. So if you have great purpose and great values, you have far bigger chance of having overarching success. So what are the actual values of Xero? I thought I'd share the 5 values with you. So the first one is human. You probably wouldn't think about that around about a software company, but our first one's human. Our second one is champion. Our next one is challenge. Our next one is ownership, and our last one is beautiful. Everything we do should be beautiful. So not just from a software design perspective, not just from the way we interact with people, but even down to the way you write a legal document. Does anyone ever think a legal document can be beautiful? It can be, because it can go out in plain English and people can actually understand it, and you don't have to actually bamboozle them with all this legal jargon. So that's the 5 values of Xero. And the thing is, if you have great values, you don't need rules. Who's worked for lots of organisations with rules? Yeah, lots of people have, I'm sure. So we only really have 2 rules. So rule number 1, you can't eat lunch at your desk. That's rule number 1. It's a serious rule. And rule number 2, you have to wash your own coffee cup. So it does actually mean wash your own coffee cup, because it really pisses me off if I go to the kitchen, there's a whole lot of dirty coffee cups, but it never happens. But what it's more about is ownership. It's about people saying, I take ownership of a problem. So right down to that absolute root thing of saying, I wash my own coffee cup, it actually goes down to the root of everything that you do. So if you see a customer who's got an issue, don't flick it off to another department, don't flick it off to somebody else, own the problem, run it through with the customer. And that actually is really what makes a massive difference. I did include this slide because this is my favourite picture that we've ever taken inside Xero, and it doesn't really fit anywhere within my presentation, but it's kind of under the people section, but I actually really like it. And the reason I love it is this is our first bunch of graduates that came through. So we suddenly got big enough that we could actually run a vacation and graduate program. And I'm not an overly emotional person, but that was probably the closest I've ever come to actually shedding a tear in the office when I actually sat down and went, we just gave a bunch of people their first job. We just gave a bunch of people their first job. And we're going to continue, we run this program every year now, and we're giving more and more people their first opportunity. And that's really cool. So Even though I said I'm not an entrepreneur, if there's somebody out here with great ideas, you want to hire lots of people, I want to see more and more companies like Xero get started up in this part of the world. That's something I'm definitely passionate about. Number 3, leverage the network effect. Leverage the network effect. So what does that mean? Basically, it means partnering. So you cannot do everything yourself. So don't try to do everything yourself. Do what you do really, really well, and then partner with other people to do what they do really, really well, as long as it's got joint benefit to your customer. One of the amazing things about this, it will actually help you to innovate much, much faster. So I said early on around our purpose that what we do is we develop beautiful software. That's our aim, that's our goal. But we don't provide advice on that platform. That's what the guys like John and our whole ecosystem do. We have this whole ecosystem of people developing around the outside of it. You know, we're engaging with government and so on. But we don't want to develop all of that ourselves. We want this whole ecosystem around the outside of it building around us. And that gives you massive expansion for growth really, really quickly, because you create all these spin-off businesses around the outside of your business. So there's a whole lot of accounting firms that have come up from nowhere over the last sort of 4, 5, 6 years off the back of Xero. There's all these apps that have been developed around the outside of Xero. So there's basically an app for everyone. There's over 600 apps now developed around the outside of Xero. And I mentioned earlier, 40,000 developers now developing on the platform. So there's a massive amount of innovation going into the market. So that's number 3. Number 3 is leverage the network effect. Number 4 is always have awesome customer experiences. So the customer, and lots of people say this, so many companies say this all the time, we're customer driven, we're customer first, we're customer first. You have to be. You have to be. And if you go into a meeting one day and you think, you know what, it's all right if we just screw over this small percentage of customers, they'll forgive us, they won't anymore. And one of the things about social media is your friend until it goes the other way. And then it's not your friend, and it can accelerate really, really quickly. So never, ever screw the customer. One of the things we like to talk about quite a lot is, or I talk a lot within the business, and this is one of the things where I've only got 3 things, is win, love, grow. Lots of businesses and lots of startups especially are great at winning a customer. So great at winning that first customer. It might be hard, but you win them, but then you've got to make sure you actually love them, and then you actually have the opportunity to grow with them, because you will want to expand your portfolio of offerings at some point in time. So, actually, what was I going to say? So one of the ones I think about the most there is actually love. Not many people talk about loving their customers. I think it's really important you actually think about that relationship and make sure you're actually driving down the risk of them actually leaving you. And if you actually have a loving relationship with them, they're unlikely to. I touched on social media already, but it's great to get feedback online. And we actually have been very fortunate to get a lot of positive feedback online. We've used our social networks extensively to actually and leverage those very much. But you also need to be willing for the downside of that as well, as I mentioned. All right, number 5, and probably another one of my real favourites, innovate or be disrupted. Innovate or be disrupted. So we've been going for 10 years, and we need to continue to innovate. If we don't innovate now, we will actually get disrupted. And I've got a couple of charts here. So this is Xero versus competitors, and what I did is I took the names of the incumbents out, but I left the colours the same. So you can work it out if you want to, or you can have a random guess. But one of the things that I find fascinating about this one is they actually should have seen us coming. They should have seen us coming. But what they did is they actually ignored the cloud, and they said the cloud won't work, nobody wants the cloud, there's a whole lot of issues about it, desktop software will survive, we'll be fine, don't worry about it, we've got a great business model. And we snuck up on them, and then you get to a certain point, and off you go. Some companies are not that fortunate. So this is Netflix versus Foxtel. I love Google Trends. If no one's ever spent time on Google Trends, I guarantee you won't go to bed that night. You'll just keep doing Google Trends all night about all these different companies. I spend quite a bit of time on Google Trends. So once again, they probably should have seen Netflix coming in Australia, but I guarantee you that day was a really dire day inside the Foxtel office. They would have sat there going, holy moly, how did they get that far past us? So the reality is you need to embrace change. And even as a company that's only 10 years old, technology is changing so quickly below us, you have to take advantage of that technology. You actually can't sit back and say, it's going to be all right. You've got to think about how does it fit in your business. We build accounting software. So when you think about accounting software, how does that fit with artificial intelligence and sensors and wearables and drones and virtual reality? The reality is we have to find out how it does fit, because our customers will want us to do that. So if we don't do that, somebody else will. So we're going to be taking advantage of the latest technologies all the time as they come along and continue to challenge ourselves. Because if we don't challenge ourselves, someone else will. I'd much rather Much rather be challenged by ourselves than challenged by somebody else. So it does work with wearables. So could you imagine if you had a desktop computer right now and you're out surfing, how that would look on your wrist? Wearables does have a place now. So wearables actually will come through and you can actually get information coming through. So the reality is you can go out and have a surf. And with that, I'm right on time. Thank you very much. That was number 5.